This happened last summer. I was 32 and just went through a tough breakup. I needed a break, so I decided to camp alone in Pine Ridge National Forest. I remembered it as a peaceful place from my childhood. I wasn't an expert, but I could set up a tent and start a fire. The first night I felt relieved. I built a small fire and sat down listening to the crackle. It was quiet, just me and the trees. Around 9 p.m. I heard faint laughter. It floated through the air, almost cheerful. I thought maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me in the dark. Things felt off after that. On the second day, while cleaning my campsite, I saw tiny footprints in the dirt. They looked like a child's. My heart raced. Why would a kid be out here? I looked around, but I felt completely alone. On the third day, I found something strange. A small, bright red toy car next to my picnic table. I had no idea how it got there. Maybe someone from another campsite dropped it. I picked it up, my hands trembling, then set it back down. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That night, the laughter came back. This time it was closer, almost right next to me. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping it would go away. I sat there for what felt like hours, wishing for morning to come. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, and I was on edge. On the fifth day, I noticed something else. A torn page lay at the edge of my campsite. It looked old and dark, as if it had been out in the woods forever. I picked it up, but the words didn't make sense. They were jumbled and really weird. I tossed it aside, and it landed near the toy car. I felt trapped in a nightmare. Still, I hadn't seen another person. Night 6 arrived, and I lay awake listening. I heard whispers, soft and fuzzy, mixed with laughter that sent chills down my spine. I peeked out of my tent but saw nothing. Just trees and shadows under a pale moon. The air felt strange, colder than before. On the last night I stepped outside. I felt drawn into the woods. And there they were, small figures standing at the tree line. I couldn't see them clearly. Then I heard one voice ask, "Why are you here?" I turned to run back into my tent, but when I looked again, they were gone. The woods felt empty. I left the next morning feeling haunted. The laughter, the footprints, the whispers, they still don't make sense. I didn't know if I imagined it or if something truly sinister happened in those woods. I still think about it every day. 9 unsettling events that I can't explain. I just wanted peace, but all I got was fear. After I got home from Pine Ridge, things got strange in a different way. I thought leaving the woods would bring me peace, but it felt like the whispers followed me. My dreams were filled with the laughter I heard that week, haunting little giggles echoing in my mind. I tried to ignore it. I went back to work, but I couldn't concentrate. My colleagues noticed. I would zone out, staring out the window, thinking about those tiny footprints and that eerie page. Friends asked me to join them for outings, but the idea of being in the wilderness again made my stomach twist. One afternoon I decided to head to a local cafe. I thought a coffee might clear my head. As I sipped my latte, staring at the steam curling up, I noticed an old newspaper clipping stuck to the corkboard on the wall. The headline caught my attention. "Missing children found in Pine Ridge Woods." My heart sank. I couldn't look away. The article mentioned kids who had vanished decades ago, and there was a photo that made my blood run cold. It was a group of kids standing in front of Pine Ridge. One of them held a bright red toy car. I felt dizzy. It was the same kind I had found by my picnic table. The same vivid color, the same worn look. I leaned closer, my fingers trembling as I traced the outline of the car in the picture. A chill crept up my spine. Had I unknowingly stumbled upon something connected to their fate? Was I just drawing connections where there were none? Or was there something darker at play? I ran a hand through my hair, trying to push down the rising panic. What did it mean? I reached for my phone, searching for more about the missing children. The details were scarce. Some were believed to have wandered off. Others simply vanished without a trace. My stomach twisted at the thought. Then I came across a forum dedicated to Pine Ridge. People shared their own experiences. Hikers hearing laughter, kids seeing figures in the trees. I felt like I was stepping back into my nightmare. Those stories were eerily similar to what I'd gone through. The more I read, the heavier the dread settled in my chest. Before I knew it, night fell. I stepped outside to clear my head. The cool air rushed around me, but I locked my door, needing the sense of safety. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, just like in the woods. Then I heard it, a faint giggle lingering in the darkness. It echoed down the street, twisting around me like a serpent. I froze, straining to listen. The streetlights flickered, casting strange shadows. I turned back into my house, my heart racing. I knew that laughter. It was the same sound. And I knew now it wasn't just a summer memory. It felt like a warning. That night, I kept the lights on. I slept fitfully, waiting for the laughter to return, for whatever had followed me from Pine Ridge to make its move. I couldn't escape it. I had opened a door to something I wasn't ready to face. The next day I couldn't shake the lingering feeling of dread. I needed to do something. Sitting in my small apartment felt like a trap. Instead of going to work, I forced myself to get out. I grabbed my jacket and headed to Pine Ridge. I thought maybe seeing the place again would help me make sense of it all. When I arrived, the woods looked the same but felt different. The paths were still covered in leaves that crunched underfoot, and the trees towered, casting long shadows. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising anxiety. I was determined to find that picnic area. Maybe I could find answers, or at the very least face the memories head-on. As I walked, the giggles echoed in my mind, returning each time the silence grew heavy. I rounded a corner and stopped short. There it was, the picnic table. It was untouched, apart from the stray leaves scattered across it. I approached cautiously, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. I knelt down, tracing my fingers over the surface. It felt colder than the air around me, and I shivered. That's when I noticed something sticking out from under the bench. I reached for it, heart racing. It was a small cloth bag, slightly torn at the edges. My instincts told me to leave it alone, but curiosity clawed at me. I opened the bag. Inside were a few small trinkets, a broken toy, a stone with strange carvings, and a tiny faded photograph of a girl smiling. Her hair was dark, and she wore a dress that looked out of place for the woods. I felt a knot in my stomach. This wasn't random. As I examined the picture, it slipped from my fingers and landed face up. I could almost hear the laughter again, but this time it felt different, almost angry. I stepped back, glancing around. The trees seemed to lean in, like they were listening. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of giggling. It was closer now, sharp and taunting. I turned, and for a split second, I thought I saw something dart between the trees, a flicker of color, like a red toy car, the same color as the one in the picture on the corkboard. Panic surged through me. I had to get out of there. I turned to run but stumbled over a root, catching myself just in time. The laughter followed me, echoing through the woods. Finally, I burst onto the path leading out, gasping for breath. I didn't stop until I reached my car. As I fumbled with the keys, I felt a chill wash over me. Something was there, watching. The air was thick with tension. I quickly locked the doors and sped away, not daring to look back. I thought I had left the woods behind, but whatever was there wasn't done with me yet. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd uncovered just the beginning of a dark mystery. What were those trinkets? And who was the girl in the photograph? As I drove, I knew I was running out of time. Something had been awakened, and it wanted me to know. I didn't sleep well that night. Each creak of my apartment made my heart race. The laughter felt woven into the very fabric of my thoughts. I couldn't escape the memory of the girl in the photo or the chilling whispers of the woods. I had to do something. The next morning, I called my brother Jake. He had always been the more adventurous one, the one who loved camping and exploring. Maybe he could help me make sense of Pine Ridge. When I told him about the trinkets, he hesitated. "Are you sure it's a good idea to go back there?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. "I need to know," I replied. "I have to figure this out." After a few minutes of back and forth, he finally agreed to join me. We met an hour later at the diner. I filled him in on everything, what I found, the giggling, and the girl in the photo. His face paled as I spoke. "We should investigate," he said, determination creasing his brow. "But we need to be careful." We decided to return to Pine Ridge together that afternoon. As we drove, I couldn't shake the weight of what I'd experienced. Jake kept asking questions, but my answers felt inadequate. When we arrived, the woods were quiet, almost too quiet. The rustling leaves and chirping birds that used to fill the air felt eerily absent. I led Jake to the picnic area, my stomach twisting with every step. He glanced around, clearly uneasy. "Are you sure this is the spot?" he asked, looking around. "This is it," I mumbled, gesturing toward the beaten-down table. Jake frowned as I pulled out the cloth bag to show him. I took out the broken toy, the stone, and finally the photograph. His eyes widened when he saw the girl. "Do you think she used to come here?" he asked, running a finger over her face. "I don't know," I replied, frustration rising in my chest. "But something isn't right." Just then, a rustling sound came from deeper in the woods. Both of us froze. The air shifted, heavy with anticipation. The laughter echoed back to me, haunting and familiar. I glanced at Jake, fear mounting in his eyes. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Before I could respond, a figure darted between the trees. It was quick, just a flash of color again, but this time it wasn't a blur. I recognized it, a red toy car, identical to the one in the photograph. My breath caught in my throat. "Did you see it?" I demanded. "See what?" Jake asked, scanning the area. "The car, it was right there." He looked skeptical. "It's just in your head, okay? Our minds can play tricks on us in places like this." But deep down I could tell he was uneasy too. We decided to leave the picnic area, but as we turned, something stopped me in my tracks. There, in the shadows of a nearby tree, stood a figure, just out of focus. I squinted, heart racing. The laughter started again, but this time it was louder, more menacing. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing Jake's arm. We sprinted back to the car, not looking back to see what might follow us. The forest seemed to echo with our fear, the laughter now a sinister chorus. As I fumbled to unlock the doors, Jake shouted, "What was that?" "I don't know," I gasped, finally getting the door open. We jumped in, locking the doors just as the giggles crescendoed, engulfing the air around us. As I sped away, I stole a glance in the rearview mirror. The woods looked the same, but I felt the weight of something dark lingering behind. The unease sat heavily in my gut. Whatever was in the woods knew we were there, and it wasn't done with us yet. As I drove on, I realized this was far from over. The figure, the laughter, this mystery only deepened, and I had to confront it head on. More questions flooded my mind. Who was the girl? And what did she want? I barely slept again that night. Every creak of my apartment felt like an omen. Jake was equally restless, sending me a text at 3 a.m. "Can't stop thinking about today," I replied. "Me neither. We need to figure this out." The next morning, adrenaline pushed me to do something. I pulled up a search engine on my laptop and entered Pine Ridge ghost stories. I needed context. The results flooded in, each story more chilling than the last. Tales of missing children, shapes seen darting through the trees, and strange reflections in the lake. Nothing mentioned the girl from the photograph, but they were enough to chill me to the bone. Then I stumbled upon a forum. People shared their theories, things I'd never considered. One post caught my eye. "The Forgotten Girl." It described a girl who would play near the woods, who disappeared years ago, and supposedly haunted Pine Ridge. Names and details swam in my mind, but I felt a tight knot of dread as I realized this might be the same girl. I called Jake, urgency weaving through my words. "We need to go back to the woods." "Why?" he replied, his voice heavy with sleep. "Read this," I said, reading out loud. "It fits with everything. We have to find out." After a moment of silence, he sighed. "Okay, let's just be careful." We agreed to meet later that day, equipped with flashlights and a sense of determination. But as I drove to meet him, unease gnawed at me. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting shadows that looked darker than usual. When I arrived at the diner, Jake was waiting outside, his expression mirroring my anxiety. We exchanged nervous glances and hopped in my car, heading back to Pine Ridge. This time I felt a kind of electricity in the air, charged, waiting. We drove in silence, both thinking the same thoughts. What if the girl had unfinished business? What if the laughter had led us somewhere we weren't meant to be? The thought sent shivers down my spine. Once we reached the place where we had run from the shadows, I parked the car. The woods loomed before us like a sleeping giant. I led the way back to the picnic area, my pulse quickened with every crunch of leaves underfoot. As we reached the table, I took a deep breath. "We're not running this time," I said decisively, gripping my flashlight. Jake nodded, though he looked hesitant, but as we began to search the area, we noticed something strange. The ground was disturbed, like someone had been digging. I knelt down, heart racing. That's when I saw it. A small, weathered box, partially buried beneath the roots of a tree. "Jake, come look at this," I called, brushing dirt away. My hands shook as I lifted it out. It felt heavy, foreboding. "What do you think is in there?" he asked, a mixture of curiosity and fear in his eyes. I hesitated, but curiosity clawed at me. I opened the box, and inside was a collection of items. A rusty locket, a faded photograph of the same girl, and a piece of paper with her name written in messy handwriting. Lila. I felt a chill creep through me as I realized this was not just a coincidence. "This is her," I whispered. She was real. But as we processed this revelation, the laughter returned. This time it wasn't distant. It was right in our ears, cold and full of malice. Fear flooded through me. I slammed the box shut. "Jake, we need to get out of here." Just as we turned to leave, the shadows around us shifted and a figure stepped out, her face now painfully clear. A girl with haunting eyes, staring straight at us. "Help me," she whispered, as the air turned icy around us. That's when I realized this was just the beginning. I had to confront Lila's story, whatever that meant. My heart raced as Lila's figure loomed closer. Her eyes were like dark holes, pulling me in with a force I couldn't resist. I glanced at Jake. His face was pale, mirroring the shock and fear that coursed through me. "What do we do?" he whispered, fear cracking his voice. "Maybe we need to talk to her," I stammered, though dread pooled in my stomach. The laughter echoed around us, playful, yet sinister. "Are you insane?" Jake retorted, backing away. He was right. Interacting with whatever this was felt like crossing a line. But she looked so fragile, so lost. She needed help. I took a trembling step forward, raising my flashlight to illuminate her face better. "Lila?" I called out, my voice barely louder than a whisper. "Can you tell us what happened?" For a moment the laughter ceased and an eerie silence enveloped us. Lila continued staring, her expression a mix of pleading and frustration. "Help me find them," she said, her words unraveling in the air like thin smoke. "Find who?" I asked, desperate for answers. Suddenly shadows danced around her, blurring her image. She reached a hand toward me, and I felt a cold wind whip through the clearing. In that chilling moment, I recalled the stories about the lost children of Pine Ridge. Their names were buried in local history, but Lila was at the center of it all. "Your friends?" I ventured, searching her gaze for a spark of recognition. "Are you looking for your friends?" She nodded slowly, the motion almost imperceptible. And then, as if we'd disturbed something ancient and restless, the air thickened. Jake grabbed my arm, urging me to move. "We need to go. Now." But I couldn't leave. Whatever had tethered Lila here, whatever darkness consumed this place, felt connected to me. "Wait," I yelled, my voice stronger now. "We can help you." The darkness around us twisted, shadows stretching and warping like tendrils reaching out. I felt panic rising in my chest, a familiar suffocating sensation. In response, Lila whispered one last thing, her voice a haunting echo. "The lake. Find them. At the lake." Before I could process her words, she vanished into the shadows, the cold rushing back in as if she had never been there at all. I stood frozen, the weight of her plea sitting heavily on my chest. "Did you hear that?" I asked Jake, who looked even more shaken than before. Yeah, but it doesn't matter, we're getting out of here, he insisted, pulling me toward the direction of the car. No. We have to go to the lake, I replied. I couldn't shake the urgency in my mind. Something told me her unfinished business was deeper than just her friends. Jake's eyes widened. You want to dive into whatever nightmare she's caught in? We don't know what's waiting for us. But we can't leave her like this, I argued, my determination flaring. If we don't do something, she'll never rest. After a moment of hesitant silence, he sighed deeply. Fine. But if anything happens... I know, I interrupted, my heart pounding with both fear and anticipation. As we made our way back through the oppressive woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lila's fate was tied to something hidden, something beneath the surface of that lake. A new chill ran through my body as I realized we weren't just chasing a ghost. We were uncovering a mystery that might change everything. When we reached the edge of the lake, the water was eerily calm under the moonlight. I took a deep breath and steeled myself. There would be no turning back now. Jake stopped beside me, uncertainty etched on his face. So what's the plan? I stared at the dark water ahead, feeling the weight of the unknown pull at me. We listen to her. We find out what she wants. With that, I stepped closer to the water's edge, preparing to confront whatever awaited us, the darkness that loomed just beneath the surface. As I stood at the water's edge, the cool air wrapped around me like a shroud. My flashlight flickered, casting uneven light over the lake's surface. Shadows danced in the corner of my vision, making me question every rustle of leaves or ripple of water. Is this really a good idea? Jake asked, his voice tight with apprehension. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, clearly regretting his agreement to follow me down this path. We can't just walk away, I replied, even though uncertainty gnawed at me. I had to know what Lila meant. I stepped closer to the water, peering into the depths. It looked like a dark blanket, covering whatever lay beneath. We need to know the truth. The lake held its secrets tightly. Then everything went still. I could feel a tension in the air, thick and electric. I scanned the surrounding trees, half hoping to see Lila appear again, and half fearing another encounter with whatever darkness had enveloped her. Just as I turned back toward the water, something glimmered beneath the surface, a faint light, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. I gasped. Jake, do you see that? What? Where? He moved next to me, squinting into the dark. I don't see anything. That's when I saw it again. The light flickered and swirled, leading me to the realization it was not just a trick of my imagination. It's right there, I pointed, excitement mingling with fear. Before I could react, the water surged. A wave crashed against the shore, splashing us both in icy droplets. I gasped, stumbling back. What the? A figure broke the surface, their features indistinguishable. A child's voice called out, weak and distant, "Help us!" My heart dropped. This wasn't Lila. I could barely think as my instincts screamed at me to run, but somehow I felt rooted in place. There was another presence here, and it felt wrong. Get back, Jake yelled, pulling me closer, his fear spilling over. We need to go. But I still felt that pull, even stronger than before. We can't abandon them. My voice trembled, caught between desperation and dread. The figure beckoned again, their hand jutting out like a lifeline, yet the coldness that radiated from the lake felt like a warning. I hesitated, caught between two worlds, the safety of retreating back to the solid ground, and the risk of diving deeper into the mystery. The water rippled again and a chilling wind whipped across the shore, sending cold fingers down my spine. Then I noticed something big moving beneath the surface, something darker than the water itself. My heart raced. Please, the voice urged. We need you. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice shaking. What do you want from us? But the murky water offered no answer, only the echo of lost souls crying out for help. Jake's grip on my arm tightened, and I could feel the panic radiating from him. Then Jake said something I couldn't believe. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe she's using us to get to them. The thought chilled me to the bone. Was this a cruel joke? Or a desperate call from those lost in the depths? Before I could respond, a loud splashing erupted, and the water erupted violently like an angry beast awakened from slumber. The surface churned, and I stumbled back just as a shadow leapt from the water, a mass darker than night. "Run!" Jake shouted. I didn't need telling twice. But as I turned away from the lake, one thought clawed at my mind. What had I just unleashed? I sprinted away from the lake, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows behind us twisted and darkened as we dashed into the trees. Panic fueled my legs, but dread hung heavily in my mind. What had I just witnessed? "Keep running," Jake yelled, pulling me forward. His grip was vice-like, making it hard to breathe. We barely made it 20 feet before Jake stumbled, his foot catching on a root, and we crashed into the underbrush. "Jake," I gasped, struggling to help him up. The air felt thick with an unseen pressure, and I could hear water splashing behind us, like something massive thrashing in pursuit. I'm okay," he puffed, brushing dirt off himself, but his eyes betrayed sheer terror. I could barely keep my composure with the sound of water splashing echoing in my ears. "We need to go." We sprang to our feet again, this time finding an opening in the trees that led to a narrow path. It was darker than the rest of the forest, shadows creeping closer as if trying to envelop us. We didn't stop to consider the danger. We just needed to get as far away from the lake as possible. "Do you think—" I started, stumbling over my words. "Do you think it was—" "Maybe it was a kid, or maybe it was a trap," Jake interrupted. "We can't think about it now. We have to warn everyone." We pressed onward, adrenaline pushing us past fallen branches and overgrown weeds. The forest felt alive, the rustling leaves whispering secrets, mocking our fear. As we reached a clearing, moonlight broke through the canopy, revealing a small cabin. Jake's eyes widened. "Let's check in there." I hesitated, dread gnawing at me. What if something is already inside? "We don't have time to debate," he snapped, glancing over his shoulder. The splashes behind us had stopped, but something in the air felt wrong. I nodded, instinctively following him as we crept toward the cabin. The door creaked, its hinges rusty. I pushed it open with a grimace, peering inside. Dust motes danced in the pale light, but the cabin was empty. "Keep watch," I said softly, stepping inside. I could feel a chill where the warmth of our panic had been. Empty shelves lined the walls, and an old table sat in the center, covered in scattered papers, torn maps, scribbled notes. I reached for one, my hands trembling. It was a half-complete diagram of the lake. The words "Do not enter" scrawled wildly next to trembling lines depicting the shoreline. My heart sank as I read the notes. They spoke of something dark lingering beneath the surface, something waiting for unsuspecting campers. "What did you find?" Jake asked, peeking over my shoulder. "Just more questions," I said, my voice faint. "We need to go back. We have to—" Suddenly the floor creaked behind us. I whirled around, breath caught in my throat. "Jake? Did you hear that?" I whispered, the hairs on my arms standing up. Before he could respond, the door slammed shut. We were plunged into darkness. I felt the pressure in the air return, thick and stifling. A low rumble echoed like distant thunder, but much closer. "Something's in here with us," I whispered, terror compounding my voice. Just as I turned back to Jake, the walls of the cabin seemed to shudder, and I caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows. And then, everything went dark. I gasped, forcing air into my lungs as the darkness swallowed us whole. Panic tightened around my throat and I fumbled for Jake. "Are you okay?" My voice came out shaky, almost a whisper. "I'm here," he said, his tone just as frightened. "What do we do?" I strained my ears, searching for any sound beyond our heavy breathing. The low rumble persisted, but now it seemed to swirl around us, pulsating like a heartbeat. "We need to find a way out," I whispered, taking a slow step toward where I thought the door had been. The floor creaked again, louder this time, almost in response. I froze, a chill creeping over my skin. Whatever was in this cabin, with us, wasn't just lurking in the shadows. It was waiting. "Let's move cautiously," Jake suggested. His hand brushed against mine in the dark, grounding me for a moment. Stay close. We shuffled forward. I reached my hand out, searching for the wall. My fingers grazed splintered wood, and I forced back a shudder. The air felt colder. We were not alone. The dark presence thickened. Then suddenly a shrill sound pierced through the gloom, a scream, echoing from somewhere deep within the cabin. I flinched, blood running cold. What was that? Did you hear it? Jake's eyes were wide, panic dancing behind them. I nodded, fear coiling tighter in my chest. We have to get out, now. Rushing forward, I pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as if something was holding it shut from the other side, pushing back against my weight. I pressed harder, my heart pounding louder than the echo of the scream. The rumbling intensified, vibrating through the structure. I could almost see the walls shake, threatening to collapse in on us. It's not going to let us go, I shouted, the desperation in my voice cutting through the fear. Just then, a glimmer of light broke through the oppressive darkness. I squinted, trying to focus. The light flickered like a candle, dancing just inside the shadows. A figure, darting past the edges of my vision. My stomach dropped. Did you see that? Yes, Jake replied, his voice barely above a whisper. We need to get out of here. With one more shove, I finally broke through the door, flinging it open. Fresh night air filled my lungs, but the panic remained as the nightly darkness enveloped us once more. We burst out of the cabin breathless and trembling. My heart raced as I turned to face the wood. What was that? A low thud answered me, heavy and close, and in the outline of the cabin, shadows swirled unnaturally. That's when I saw it. A pale figure, almost human, staring at us with hollow eyes, its mouth twisted in an unsettling grin. Go! I screamed, pulling Jake with me as we ran blindly into the trees. The splashing behind us resumed, echoing in the quiet night. But my mind was only focused on one thing. That figure. I glanced back. It didn't follow us, but I could feel its gaze weighing on my back, holding tight to the darkness. What were we dealing with? We had to warn everyone, but as we pushed deeper into the forest, my thoughts were racing. What else had been hidden beneath those dark waters? What else was waiting for us in the shadows? The realization hit me like a freezing wave. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. We burst from the woods, the tree line finally yielding to the openness of the clearing and a flickering moonlight. I turned and breathed in the cool night air, but the weight of shadows still pressed against my back. We have to call for help, I gasped, panic coursing through me like electricity. Jake nodded but didn't say anything, his eyes darting nervously to the treetops, as if he expected to see those ghastly figures emerge at any moment. We sprinted for my car, heartbeats drumming a frantic rhythm. Jake reached for his phone as we stumbled to a stop. I fumbled with my keys, my fingers shaking. Come on, I muttered, finally getting the key into the lock. As we slid into the car, my chest felt tight with the horror of what we'd just witnessed. Jake pressed his phone to his ear, pacing like a caged animal in the small space of the passenger seat. What do you mean there's no signal? He groaned. I caught his eye, desperation mirrored in our expressions. Just then, a flash of movement in the rear view caught my attention. I twisted around, heart racing as the darkness coalesced into shapes beyond the trees, twisting and writhing as if something, or someone, was waiting just out of sight. We need to go now, I shouted. Jake cursed under his breath, slamming his palm against the dashboard. I can't get through, there's something wrong. I didn't need him to tell me, I could feel it too. Whatever force had haunted us in the woods was creeping closer, silent and omnipresent. I turned the key, the engine stumbling to life, but I hesitated for a split second as unease clawed at my insides. What if we can't escape? We have to try, Jake urged, his voice urgent. With a gulp of determination, I slammed the car into gear. The tires screamed as we pulled away, the trees blurring past as I drove into the heart of darkness. But even as we sped down the winding road, I felt the presence lingering just outside our reach, teasingly close but never entirely revealed. Did you see her face? I stammered, my voice shaking as I kept my eyes on the road. That girl, Lila. Yeah. Jake's expression hardened. It felt like she wanted something from us, but I couldn't tell what it was. The echo of Lila's haunting plea tugged at something deep inside me. Help me find them. The rest of the ride remained tense, filled only by my frantic thoughts and Jake's sporadic mumbling, both of us haunted by the immense shadows that loomed behind us. I could almost hear the whispering laughter blending with the hum of the tires on the pavement. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a flash of red in the tree line. The toy car. My blood ran cold. We hadn't escaped. The shadows were connecting back to us, weaving through the very fabric of our reality. Pull over, I yelled, and Jake's wide eyes met mine with confusion. I need to look for Lila and the lake. What? Are you crazy? He half yelled. You want to go back there after everything? The urgency bubbled to the surface. It's either that or we let her down. Whatever it is, it's not going to stop until we find out. I can't just leave her there. With a heavy sigh and a look of understanding, Jake nodded slowly. Let's do it then. We parked just outside of the wooded area, the dark pines towering over us, creeping in as I stepped out of the car. With each footfall, the whispers crescendoed, palpable and ominous. The air felt thicker, a blanket of dread rolling in. Navigating through the trees, we arrived at the lake embankment, the moonlight smoothing over the surface serene and deceptively calm. This place, I murmured, half to myself. It looked unchanged. But beneath? It feels different. Jake knelt beside me, his gaze scanning the water. What are we supposed to find? Whatever Lila needs, I replied, desperation tangling my voice. Quietly, I reached into my pocket, pulling out the tarnished photograph of Lila I had taken with me. The edges were frayed, yet her smile remained unfaltering. Help us, I whispered, as I pressed the picture against the cold surface of the water. The lake shimmered as if responding, waves lapping gently at the shore. A moment of stillness fell between us, the air pregnant with anticipation. And then, it happened. A rush of water erupted violently, twisting and spiraling as figures began to rise from the depths. The pulsing lights flickered beneath them, a chorus of spirits breaking through the surface, murmuring and grasping for the air above. Lila! I screamed, frantically searching for her familiar face in the chaos. Let's go! Jake shouted, pulling at my arm. But I was rooted in place, eyes locked on the emerging figures, lost but anguished souls, lamenting their own fates. Please, I cried, clenching the photograph tighter, tears spilling down my cheeks. What do you want? They moved closer, faces visible now, not just remnants but children with eyes full of sadness, almost pleading. I looked back at Jake, who was trembling, uncertain. Stay with me, I breathed. Don't run. A stillness hung in the air, and Lila's voice emerged from the chorus, clearer now, a piercing wail cutting through the echoes of the others. Help us! The shadows grew blinding, encircling me. Then suddenly Lila nodded, her spectral hand beckoning toward the depths where the flickering lights converged. There was something deep below, a truth hidden in those waters, buried like a secret. But could I truly venture there? Before I could process, the surface of the lake trembled violently, and a force surged upward, something dark and terrifying clawing its way from the depths. What is that? Jake shouted, panic lacing his voice as we stumbled backward. Look, I yelled, gasping at the commotion, feeling as if the air itself had split. Just then a hand, clad in a ghastly grip of shadows, broke the surface, reaching for me, pulling me in, dragging me toward the truth hidden below. All at once, I was torn between the fear gripping my heart and the desperate urgency that pulled me forward. Jake was shouting something behind me, but the laughter turned to a roar, mixing with the cries of lost children. Whatever was beneath the surface was flaring to life, and I had one choice: to face it, or be consumed by it. I took a step forward, knowing I had to enter the depths, knowing there was no escape once I did. For Lila, for them. I had to confront whatever horror awaited below, and with that fateful choice I stepped into the lake, surrendering to the unknown and diving deep into darkness.